Senator Ted Cruz, thank you so much. We appreciate it. You're here today for the inauguration of Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson as a guest. How did this come to be, and why was it important for you to be here?
Well, Mayor Johnson's become a friend, and I think he's done a really good job for the city of Dallas. You know, he and I are both fathers with relatively young kids, and you know, he came in to do a really hard job. Being mayor of a big city, being mayor of Dallas, is not an easy job. And I'll tell you what I really admire about Eric is that he had the courage to take on some of the far left voices in his own party, in particular when it concerns law enforcement. Some of the voices calling for defunding or abolishing the police. Mayor Johnson said no, said that's not good for the people of Dallas, that we need strong law enforcement here in Dallas to keep people safe. And I think the people of Dallas are a lot better off for that. I admire the courage that Mayor Johnson demonstrated in standing up for the men and women of law enforcement. I think it made a difference. You know, Mayor Johnson is someone I work with quite closely. Both John Cornyn and I have added Mayor Johnson to our Federal Judicial Evaluation Committee. That is the bipartisan committee that reviews every application to be a federal judge in the state of Texas. And the way John Cornyn and I handle both judgeships and U.S. attorney positions in Texas is that when there's a vacancy, we put up a public posting, and anyone is open to apply. They apply on the merits. And we have this group, this Judicial Advisory Committee, that is by design bipartisan. It's serious lawyers from every region of the state of Texas who are respected. They interview those nominees. They give us their judgment, and ultimately, those nominees get forward to John Cornyn and me, and we interview the very best of them and make our determinations and send those on to the White House. And it says something about what both John Cornyn and I think of Mayor Johnson, that both of us enthusiastically agreed he should be part of the team advising us on who should be a federal judge in the state of Texas. And he's someone I respect, and so I'm glad to be here for his inauguration.
I wanted to ask you, obviously you're running for re-election, and since we last spoke, Congressman Colin Allred from the Dallas area has announced he's running against you. There may be other Democrats entering the race. So I'm wondering what your reaction is to that, and what is the basis for your re-election?
Well, listen, there'll be plenty of time to talk the specifics of politics. My re-election is going to be focused on my record over the past 11 years, fighting for the state of Texas and winning for the state of Texas, delivering real results to Texans in terms of jobs, in terms of an economic environment that makes Texas the envy of the world. There's a reason 1,000 people a day move to the state of Texas, and they have for over 10 years. What we're doing in Texas works: low taxes, low regulations, an environment where small businesses prosper, and freedom. Look, Texans want our constitutional rights defended. We want the Bill of Rights defended. I've spent my entire life defending the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, defending free speech, defending religious liberty, defending the Second Amendment, defending all of the fundamental rights that Texans expect and deserve to have protected. And then finally, I'd say security. Texans want to be able to raise our families in an environment that is safe and secure. That means we want strong law enforcement that can keep us safe from violence. That means we want a secure border so that we don't have the flood of illegal drugs that is coming into this country. Last year, tragically, over 100,000 Americans died of drug overdoses. 70% of that came from fentanyl, Chinese fentanyl coming across our southern border. I think Texans want a secure southern border, strong law enforcement. Jobs, freedom, and security are the priorities of Texans, and that's been my priority from day one.
You've criticized the indictment against former President Donald Trump. As a former Solicitor General, have you read the indictment against him, and how serious are the charges against him?
Well, I think these indictments are really unfortunate. I think they do serious damage to the rule of law. You know, you think of our nation's history, we're over 200 years old. We have never had one administration turn around and indict the preceding president. That's something, frankly, banana republics do. That's not something we do in America. In this case, the Department of Justice is applying an obvious double standard, a double standard to Donald Trump, whom they hate, that they're not applying to Joe Biden. Joe Biden had classified documents stuck just about everywhere, including in a box in an unlocked garage next to his classic Corvette. And yet DOJ is not prosecuting Joe Biden. Hillary Clinton's misadventures with classified documents and destroying emails and destroying evidence, those were legendary. And yet the Biden Justice Department doesn't apply these standards to her. And I got to say, I think most Americans, regardless of where you fall on the ideological spectrum, whether you're a Republican, whether you're a Democrat, most Americans, if you're being honest, you can recognize this is a double standard. This would not be applied if his name was not Donald J. Trump. And I got to say, I'm an alumnus of the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice is meant to be apolitical. It's meant to apply the law regardless of party. And so applying a double standard, treating it essentially as a political enforcement arm for the White House, I think that's incredibly dangerous. And so I have to say I'm deeply disappointed. I think Merrick Garland has proven to be the most political attorney general this country's ever seen, and I think that's doing real damage.
And I did want to ask you about Ken Paxton, the Attorney General. We're waiting today to find out what the rules are going to be in the Texas Senate. You've been very vocal about this. What's your thought on this? Do you think he's getting a raw deal by Republicans in the Texas House?
Well, listen, it's going to be a decision for the Texas Senate how to handle this matter. I said earlier that I think it's a mistake for the Texas legislature to impeach Ken Paxton. On the merits, if you actually look to the substance of the job he's done, I think Ken Paxton has been, bar none, the most conservative attorney general in the country. He's built a remarkable record standing up and defending Texas in court. I admire that. Now, Ken obviously has legal problems. He has legal challenges that have been ongoing for some time. What I encourage the legislators to do is to let the legal process play out. Let the courts handle those legal problems. And in particular, the allegations that the House moved on, all of those allegations have been public a long time. The criticism of Ken, that's been public a long time. And we just had an election. We had an election where Ken's opponents, this was their principal argument. They spent millions of dollars making exactly these arguments. And the voters of Texas made a decision. They decided they weren't persuaded by these arguments, that they wanted a strong conservative attorney general representing Texas. My view, we ought to respect the view of the voters on that.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.